We start off with Vince McMahon, probably the most famous wrestling promoter in history, now one of the most infamous. Pretty much anyone who's been at all familiar with Vince McMahon as a person just wasn't all that surprised about these allegations that dropped earlier this year. And the allegations are seriously messed up. For all the controversy that usually surrounds cases like this involving famous people though, wrestling fans everywhere from all walks of life were pretty much unanimously like, yeah, I could see it. So God, where do I start with this one? Well, for starters, let me just say this is not the first time someone has come out with allegations against Vince McMahon. He's gotten into hot water for a number of things over the years. This case is really just the one that finally seems to have had a real impact on his career. There's a lot to unpack here, but probably the most disgusting allegations came from a woman named Janelle Grant, who came out with this massive document outlining all these awful things McMahon did. McMahon had offered Grant a job at WWE, but incredible mistreatment followed, with McMahon having her perform favors for him and other staff at the company in order to keep her job, and these favors are sickening. Then in 2022, McMahon had pressured her into signing a non-disclosure agreement before leaving the company. She was also to receive $3 million from him in order to stay quiet. This case is so massive we could do a whole video on it, but yeah, I'll just end things there.
Next, we are talking about Charles S. Dutton. Charles Stanley Dutton's life is a real roller coaster of tough times and triumphs. Born in the rough neighborhoods of Baltimore in 1951, Dutton had a rocky start, dropping out of school and briefly stepping into the boxing ring as an amateur. But it wasn't his punches in the ring that defined his early years. It was a deadly fight that turned his life upside down. Dutton claimed self-defense, but he ended up pleading guilty to manslaughter and was sent to prison for 5 years. This was just the beginning of his troubles. After getting out on parole, he was soon back behind bars for robbery and for carrying a weapon, earning him another 3-year sentence. But when Dutton threw a punch at a guard, he found himself facing a staggering 8 more years. While in prison, Dutton's life took quite a sharp turn. He survived an attack that almost claimed his own life, and then he discovered his passion for acting. This new path led him from the prison stage to the world stage, where he became known for his powerful roles in TV series like Rock and films like Alien 3 and A Time to Kill. Despite his dark past, Dutton turned his life around, winning Emmys and earning a Golden Globe nomination, proving that sometimes the most compelling stories of redemption are the ones that happen off-screen.
Ezra Miller, once again. Where do I start? I don't know how Miller hasn't ended up in jail yet. He started becoming pretty obvious that there was something up with Ezra when that video came out in 2020 where he grabbed a woman by the neck and then forced her to the ground. People were like, the hell was that about? Was that a skit or something? Then there was all this stuff going on in Hawaii. Miller got into all these arguments and altercations with people, seemingly at random, then was arrested after throwing a chair which hit a woman in the head. A friendly couple who had allowed Ezra to stay at their home were even forced to get a restraining order after Miller had apparently threatened the two. Then in 2022, all this disturbing stuff started coming out about a relationship Miller had been forming with a woman named Dakota Iron Eyes. The relationship began when Miller was 23 and she was 11 years younger, so do the math. Total creep. And that's not the only allegation that's been made against Miller in regards to someone that age. Miller also went to court on a burglary charge, but no jail time came out of that. I honestly don't know how.
Next on our list today, we are talking about Aaron Hernandez. Aaron, a former star tight end for the New England Patriots, had a meteoric rise to fame in the NFL. His career was marked by his dynamic plays and his infamous pairing with Rob Gronkowski, but behind the touchdowns and the fame was an extremely troubled life. His career took quite a dark turn when he was arrested for taking the life of Odin Lloyd, a semi-professional basketball player who was dating the sister of Aaron's fiancée. This crime, alongside his charge for taking the lives of 2 people, which he was later acquitted of, absolutely shocked the public, as no one was expecting there to be this dark side to him. Just days after the acquittal came, Aaron was found in his cell, having taken his own life, a very dark ending to this chapter of crime. Aaron's story definitely did not end here, as his medical examination after death revealed something no one knew: his posthumous diagnosis of severe chronic chronic traumatic encephalopathy, now more commonly known as CTE, has sparked debates about the impact of repeated head injuries on behavior, highlighting a very tragic side of professional football that's often hidden from the cheering crowds.
Allison Mack, you might remember her from Smallville if you've been living under a rock since the 2000s, that is, because now she's most famous for being a member of the infamous NXIVM cult. NXIVM was promoted as this self-help group offering personal and professional development workshops, but everything came to light about how messed up this place actually was. It was a full-on cult led by a man named Keith Raniere. Members were manipulated, exploited, and subjected to various forms of torment, and Allison Mack played a big role in the group. She was a high-ranking member who recruited women into the secret subgroup within the cult called DOS, Dominus Obsequios Sororium. And DOS women were branded with Raniere's initials and were blackmailed, having to give Raniere all this personal information about themselves and illicit photos, which he would hold on to as collateral. In 2018, Mack was arrested and charged for her role in the organization. She admitted to manipulating women into becoming part of DOS and taking advantage of them. In 2021, Allison Mack was sentenced to 3 years in prison, along with a $20,000 fine. $20,000 and 3 years in jail for that. Pretty lenient, but she cooperated with authorities and helped get Raniere behind bars, so I guess there's that.
Next, we are talking about Salman Khan. Often hailed as one of Bollywood's biggest stars, Salman had fame not just for his films, but also for his sort of bad boy persona. In 2002 is when things really started to turn and his name hit the headlines for all the wrong reasons. He was arrested after his car hit and ran over 5 people in Mumbai, leaving many injuries and sadly 1 person dead. Initially, he was convicted on charges relating to the incident, but on appeal, his conviction was actually overturned, which led to quite a media frenzy and a ton of debate. But this was not the end of the story. In 2018, Salman found himself in hot water again, this time for hunting a black buck, a protected species of antelope, with the crime taking place while he was shooting a movie in 1998. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison, but after quite the whirlwind of legal proceedings, he ended up out on bail pending an appeal. Khan's controversies extend beyond the courtroom. His relationships and personal life have been constant for the tabloids, particularly his turbulent relationship with an actress, which ended amid accusations of harassment.
Next up, we have Gary Glitter. If you're like me and, weren't really an adult around 1999, you've probably never heard of this guy. And that's because the music industry has really tried to distance themselves from him as much as possible. Gary Glitter is now in prison once again, and he's been in and out a number of times, and the fact that he's gotten as many chances as he has, it's pretty infuriating. But he used to be a singer. He was big in the 70s and 80s. In 1999, though, Glitter was charged after some incriminating stuff was found on his computer. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure out what that stuff probably was. Basically, this guy is just a complete sicko. At the same time all this was going on, he was also charged for adult activity with someone who it was illegal to be doing so with, but he was acquitted of that because it happened back in the 70s. He was then deported from several countries because he tried traveling across the globe to continue his career as an absolute people creep. He'd been in and out of court repeatedly, all for very similar, despicable offenses, but it wasn't until 2015 that he actually received a serious punishment, 16 years in prison. But he was eligible for parole in 2023 and got it. He just recently landed himself back in prison though, because what do you know, he went right back to being the exact same monster he always and will always be. Here's hoping he stays where he belongs this time.
Next, we're talking about Jim Gordon. Once a celebrated American drummer and musician who played with iconic groups like Derek and the Dominos, saw his life take a tragic turn due to severe mental health issues. This talented artist, who contributed to hits like Layla and worked with legends ranging from the Beach Boys to Steely Dan, had a dark side that overshadowed his musical genius. In 1983, amidst a battle battle with undiagnosed schizophrenia, Gordon committed a horrific crime. He took the life of his own mother, believing he was obeying a voice in his head. This terrible act led to his conviction, and he was sentenced to 16 years to life in prison. Despite his immense talent, Gordon's life became a cautionary tale about the importance of mental health care. He was misdiagnosed and untreated for his schizophrenia, which led to devastating consequences. Gordon remained in prison until his death last year in 2023, never having sought parole. Definitely a reflection of his ongoing struggle with his mental condition.
Once again, I head back to the world of professional wrestling with Jimmy Snuka. Snuka was big in the golden era of the WWE, or WWF as it was called at the time, in the 80s. He was famous for his high-flying moves and his charismatic persona, but his career will now always be overshadowed by an incident involving the death of his former girlfriend, Nancy Argentino. On May 10th of 1983, after a wrestling match in Allentown, Pennsylvania, Snuka called for an ambulance to his hotel room. Nancy Argentino was found injured and was taken to the hospital, where she died from traumatic brain injuries. The autopsy revealed that she had numerous cuts and bruises. The coroner suggested it would need to be investigated as a homicide, but no charges were pressed against Snuka at the time. Earlier in '83, Snuka had even been arrested for beating Argentino, but she later declined to press charges. Wonder why? Well, apparently Vince McMahon had helped to persuade her not to. Not wanting the negative press it would bring on the company. Always classy Vince McMahon. So despite the suspicious circumstances, the case went cold for decades. In 2013, the case was reopened though, and in 2015, over 30 years after Argentino's death, Snuka was charged. Snuka pleaded not guilty, but his health was deteriorating. He'd been diagnosed with dementia and stomach cancer, and in 2016, a judge ruled him mentally unfit to stand trial. The charges were dismissed in early 2017, and Snuka died later that month.
And finally, closing out our list today, we are talking about Claudine Longette, a once celebrated Franco-American singer and actress from the swinging 60s and 70s, found herself in a chilling plot twist worthy of a Hollywood thriller. Born in the romantic streets of Paris, Claudine charmed her way into America's heart, marrying crooner Andy Williams and hobnobbing with the Kennedys. But her star-studded life took a dark turn in 1976 when she fatally shot her boyfriend, former Olympic skier Vladimir "Spider" Savic, in Aspen, Colorado. The incident, which Claudine claimed was an accident during a demonstration of the gun's mechanics, led to her conviction. The case, draped in celebrity and scandal, captured the public's fascination. Claudine served a very brief, very controversial sentence of 30 days, choosing to serve mostly on weekends, which was a decision that sparked outrage, and a decision that I didn't know was possible. I feel like I just want to take my jail sentence only on the weekends. Insane. Following her legal battles, she retreated from the limelight, her once glittering career overshadowed by her notorious brush with the law.
Phil Spector, an innovative record producer and musician who's worked with some of the biggest bands of all time. Leonard Cohen, the Ramones, and many more. Oh, and some underground group called the Beatles. Phil Spector is also known for having killed American actress Lana Clarkson in 2003. Clarkson had met up with Spector at the House of Blues in LA. The two were then driven to his mansion. Spector and Clarkson went inside. The driver remained in the car. Then, a little while later, Spector walked outside holding a firearm, telling his driver, quote, "I think I killed someone." Clarkson's body was found slumped over a chair with a single bullet wound to the mouth. Apparently, this had not been an isolated incident. During the trial, 4 other women testified against Spector, saying he'd pulled a firearm on them while intoxicated after they'd turned down his advances and tried to leave his home. On May 29, 2009, Spector was sentenced to 19 years to life and died in prison in 2021.
Next on our list, we have Johnny Lewis, best known for his role as Half-Sack Epps on Sons of Anarchy, and for the fact that from 2005 to 2006 he was in a very public relationship with pop sensation Katy Perry. Although Lewis did have a history of substance abuse, no one ever thought he would be capable of doing what he did on September 26th of 2012. He beat and killed his 81-year-old landlady, Catherine Davis. After the incident, he went up to the roof of his building where he got into an argument with 2 men, during which he fell off of the building onto the sidewalk below and died on impact. When When police conducted their investigation of the killing and Lewis's death, they found no clear motive as to why Lewis would have done what he did. Not only that, but when they tested his blood for substances, they found out that he was completely sober at both the time of the killing and the time of his own death. The incident happened just after the young actor had been released from jail 5 days prior on September 21st, where he was serving time for charges of attack with a deadly weapon and burglary. Why things escalated the way they did, we may never know.
Chris Benoit, I'll probably be getting some heat for this one, I'm sure. Pro wrestling fans are very familiar with the case of Chris Benoit, said to be one of the best wrestlers of all time. Now, I know something had obviously changed in Benoit. He'd suffered multiple concussions, and tests were done on his brain after his death that showed it resembled that of an 85-year-old Alzheimer's patient. He was also in a really bad place after Eddie Guerrero's death about a year and a half before. So I'm not actually saying Chris Benoit was evil. However, he did kill his entire family. It's a tragic case, but the fans that rallied to have like WWE acknowledge him again, I don't know. I kind of gotta question that. Like, seriously? The details of this case are incredibly disturbing. The bodies of Benoit, his wife Nancy, and their son were discovered on June 25th of 2007. Authorities had been responding to a welfare check because Benoit never showed up to the weekend shows and hadn't even called in or anything, which was very odd. On Friday, 3 days before the bodies were discovered, Benoit had bound his wife before strangling her. He then gave his son Xanax before strangling him. Benoit spent all of Saturday and then most of Sunday with his deceased wife and son in the home. After this case, all this stuff, really started coming to light about pro wrestling and concussions and how serious they really are. Shed a lot of light on the darker side of wrestling.
Next on our list today, we've got Sid Vicious, and boy is he ever. If you don't know who Sid Vicious is, he was the former bassist of the English punk rock band formed in London in 1975, the Sex Pistols. In 1978, Vicious met a woman named Nancy Spungen, and the two quickly became inseparable. Unfortunately, however, as Vicious and Spungen's relationship grew, Sid's relationship with the band began to deteriorate, and eventually the band broke up. But Sid and Nancy's relationship remained strong. That is, until the morning of October 12th of 1987, when Nancy Spungen was found dead on the bathroom floor in the Chelsea Hotel. She had been killed by Vicious with the very same blade she had gifted to him during their loving honeymoon stage. Vicious went back and forth with confessing to and adamantly denying the crime, but he was ultimately charged with killing in the second degree. But a few days later, he was released on bail. Different times, I suppose.
Paul Kelly. He was in movies from 1919 to 1957. It's kind of crazy to think he was doing movies for so long, because in 1927, he killed a fellow actor named Ray Raymond. Not a famous actor, he only got to work in a couple very early movies because he died. Ray Raymond had been married to an actress named Dorothy McKay, and apparently she'd been having an affair with Paul Kelly. On April 16th of 1927, an intoxicated Kelly approached an intoxicated Raymond. The two started to argue about Kelly's relationship with Raymond's wife. Things quickly got physical, and Paul Kelly ended up beating Raymond to death. Kelly was apparently considerably bigger. Paul Kelly was sentenced to up to 10 years at San Quentin, but only ended up doing 25 months. He was released on the condition that he couldn't get married for 18 months, okay? And that he'd have to work as a grocery clerk, only making $30 per week. He worked as a clerk for a bit, but managed to convince his parole officer to allow him to work on Broadway again, with the deal being he'd still only be able to make $30 per week. Here's the really insane part though. After his 18-month no marriage probation thingy, he and Dorothy McKay got married. This lady got married to the dude who'd killed her husband. And the other crazy part, McKay had a daughter, Valerie Raymond. Paul Kelly became her father. Her name was changed to Mimi Kelly. The man who had beaten her father to death was now living in her house as her adoptive father. Just unreal.
Next on our list today, we have former boxing promoter Don King, who killed not one, but two men in two separate incidents. The first man King killed was legally deemed self-defense. he fired a projectile at an intruder, a man named Hillary Brown, who was attempting to break in to one of King's gambling establishments. But the second man he killed was not in self-defense. And it wasn't pretty either. In 1967, King entered into a dispute with an employee named Sam Garrett, who at the time of his death was indebted to Don King. How much? $600. That's right, the man lost his life over $600. It seems as though King was growing impatient while waiting for Sam to pay him back, and eventually he just snapped. He entered into a fight with Sam, during which King stomped the man completely to death. He was convicted of Man 1 and was jailed for, get this, 3 years and 11 months. Talk about a slap on the wrist.
The story of Varg Vikernes is known to pretty much anyone involved in the extreme metal scene. This guy's known for his early days in the black metal subgenre in Norway, but probably most famous for burning down churches and killing one of the founders of the infamous black metal band Mayhem. Varg had driven to Euronymous' apartment in Oslo. He was carrying a blade with him. Now, according to Varg, he believed that Euronymous had been planning to kill him and videotape it. The two got into an argument, and Varg impaled Euronymous 23 times, although Varg says some of those wounds had been caused by broken glass. He also claims that Euronymous attacked him first, but really, it's impossible to know. They were the only two in the room. Varg was sentenced to 21 years in prison. When he was given his sentence, he famously gave this creepy smirk to the camera.
Next up, we have none other than Caitlyn Jenner, who in the span of less than a year killed someone and then went on to be awarded Woman of the Year. Make it make sense. In February of 2015, Jenner's SUV rear-ended a white car being driven by Kim Howe, an actress and animal rights activist, causing it to fly out into oncoming traffic. Kim's car was then struck by a Hummer, a collision that badly injured passengers in both vehicles but ultimately claimed the life of Kim Howe. After the incident, Jenner volunteered to have her blood drawn for a sobriety test, which she did pass, but she claimed that the accident was caused because of paparazzi, which she told police had been chasing her at the time, although authorities believed that to be a lie. After the incident, Jenner released a blanket statement of remorse. However, the stepdaughter of the deceased claims that Caitlyn never actually apologized to her or any of Kim's family members directly for her role in Kim Howe's death. Months later, in October of 2015, Caitlyn Jenner was awarded Woman of the Year and given the title All-American Hero, which, if you ask me, is All-American BS.
Michael Jace, an actor known for his role in the TV show The Shield, ended up killing his wife, April Jace, at their home in May of 2014. The two had been having a domestic dispute. Michael had accused his wife of cheating on him, and things quickly escalated, and Michael pulled a firearm and fired at her. Unfortunately, their two young ones were in the house at the time. Jace called 911 and admitted to firing at his wife. He stayed at the scene until police arrived and was arrested and charged. He claimed that he hadn't tried to kill her, that he was only trying to hit her in the leg to cause pain. In May of 2016, though, Michael Jace was convicted and sentenced to 40 years to life in prison.
And finally, we have Phil Lewis, aka Mr. Mosby. None of us wanted this one to end up on the list, but unfortunately it's here because it's true. It happened. In December of 1991, Lewis made the decision to get behind the wheel with an intoxication level that was 3 times the legal limit. During his drive, he crossed over the center line and collided head-on with the vehicle of Isabel Duarte, who was taken to hospital but pronounced dead shortly after. When Lewis, who was 23 at the time and working as an actor, was questioned about the incident, he claimed that he couldn't remember anything, but that he was sorry for what he had done. He was, and this should come as a shock to none of you, sentenced to 5 years in prison, already a joke, but released after 1 year, after which he was ordered to serve 2 years probation and 350 hours of community service. Bet you didn't know all that when you were growing up watching Mr. Mosby scream at Zack and Cody for running through his lobby. It seems a little bit hypocritical, if you ask me.
Woody Harrelson's dad is an infamous hitman. Did you know that Woody Harrelson, the actor we all know and love, has a dad who's into some seriously scary stuff? Yeah, it's true. His dad, Charles Harrelson, was no ordinary guy. As a matter of fact, he was known as one of the most infamous hitmen of the 20th century. So Woody, the awesome actor from Zombieland and True Detective, has a dad named Charles Harrelson. So get this, Charles Harrelson made history as the first guy to assassinate a federal judge. I mean, who does that? That's some serious headline-grabbing, jaw-dropping kind of stuff. But wait, there's more. He once got into an argument over carpets. Yeah, carpets. And things got out of hand. Over a measly $1,500, he took someone's life. It's insane to think that somebody we see on the screen and admire has this whole hidden chapter in his family's past. You know, sometimes reality is even crazier than fiction. Imagine being in Woody's shoes, knowing that your dad had this whole dark and scary side. It's the kind of thing that gives you the chills. At number 9, Sophia Vergara's family history of addiction and murder. You've probably seen Sophia Vergara on TV or in movies, this cheerful, bubbly personality. Well, her life's been a roller coaster ride with some really tough loops. See, her older brother was caught up in this horrible kidnapping back in '89. It was a nightmare, a tragic situation that ended with him losing his life. It was devastating to her and her family, but the only family tragedy that she had to go through. Her younger brother, Giulio, had his own struggles. He battled with substance addiction, a real fight. Sadly, it got so bad that he ended up getting deported back to Colombia in 2011. Some super heavy stuff to handle, especially when you're in the public eye like Sophia. She's out there making people laugh, all the while dealing with these heartbreaking family issues. Behind those smiles and red carpet appearances, there can be some deep pain and struggles. Just goes to show you never really know what someone might be going through behind closed doors. If you're enjoying this video so far, please support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Most Amazing, and ringing that notification bell. Next up at number 8 is Charlize Theron, who witnessed her mother off her father. In 1991, at just 15 years old, the would-be actress watched her mother lethally shoot her father. You see, he was super drunk, making threats to harm Charlize and her mom. Things got scary when he tried to break through the bedroom door. She and her mother held the door shut to prevent his entry, prompting her drunken father to step back and fire 3 rounds through the door, but luckily, neither were hit. It was a terrifying experience. She explained that her dad's drinking caused a lot of problems and that she can only remember him in this state. Her mom acted to protect them, but it ended quite tragically for her dad. The police decided it was self-defense, so her mother didn't face any charges. Despite this tough time, Charlize went on to become a successful actor, using her experiences to inspire others. At number 7, Rose McGowan was raised by a promiscuous cult. So Rose McGowan, she's been in some cool movies like Charmed and Screamed, but let me tell you something wild about her past that's not often in the spotlight. See, back when Rose was just a kid, her family was part of this group called the Children of God, which is a very infamous cult that we often talk about here on the channel. The group had some pretty messed up beliefs, especially about love. They were all about this free love thing, but it wasn't all hearts and flowers, no. It was more like a cover for some seriously dark stuff, letting all sorts of awful things happen, especially to women. Living in that environment, Rose saw some things no kid should ever see. She witnessed how women were treated horrifically. It's no wonder she decided to leave when she was a teenager. I mean, who wouldn't want to get out of there? But even though she's in the spotlight now, Rose doesn't talk much about her past. Can't blame her. That's some heavy stuff to deal with. At number 6, Mariah Carey sold her body while struggling with bipolar disorder. You might have heard this story swirling around, but here's the real scoop. See, Mariah Carey has been quite open about her struggles with bipolar disorder, which is a mental health condition affecting mood swings. It takes courage to talk about something like that, and it's great when people raise awareness. But there are also these other stories floating around saying that she got involved in some illegal stuff, like some sources claim that she was arrested for being a woman of the night, and even mentioned being HIV positive. Now, these claims don't have solid evidence backing them up. It's totally okay to be concerned about people, especially famous ones, but it's also important to rely on credible information. Gossip spreads fast. Now, these stories might just be made up drama. We don't actually know. At number 5, Richard Pryor was raised in a brothel. You won't believe the roller coaster Richard Pryor rode through life. Essentially, his early years were spent in a house that wasn't just a regular home. It was a place where his mom worked as a lady of the night. That environment wasn't exactly a playground for a kid. When his mom sort of bailed on him, he got raised by his tough-as-nails grandma, who apparently wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. And his dad, well, let's just say he wasn't exactly father of the year material. But the thing about Richard Pryor was that he didn't let that rocky start define him. Instead, he turned his experiences into comedy gold. He took the pain, the crazy family life, and turned it into jokes that made people crack up. This guy had a knack for making people see the funny side of life even when things were bleak, and that's what made him a legend. At number 4, Jackie Chan's parents met in a narcotics bust. Jackie Chan's family history is literally like something out of a spy movie. His dad, Charles Chan, had quite the tale to tell. He wasn't just a regular guy, he was a martial arts expert turned secret agent for the Nationalist Guard in China. Meanwhile, Jackie's mom, Lily, had a tough life. She lost her first husband in a bombing during the war and ended up getting involved in smuggling opium in order to provide for her 2 kids. Now this is where things got interesting. Charles had caught Lily red-handed with opium at a port. Now he could have arrested her, but he noticed a blue flower in her hair and felt sympathy for her. See, during that time in China, a blue flower in one's hair was a sign of immense loss, a mark of a widower grieving for her husband and or children. He felt sympathy for her and let her go, opium and all. Their love story began from that moment. Charles and Lily got married and had Jackie Chan. The beloved action actor star comes from a family with a past that's cooler than a spy romance story. At number 3, Rihanna's father's second family. So Rihanna, the super cool singer we all know and love, wakes up one day and gets hit with the jaw-dropping bombshell that her dad, Ronald Fentley, wasn't just battling addiction issues, as he had a whole secret family that Rihanna didn't know squat about. Now Ronald wasn't just struggling with substances. As it turns out, he'd been living a double life, keeping his other family, a set of 2 daughters and a son, totally hidden from Rihanna. Imagine the shock and confusion she must have felt upon realizing this hidden side of her dad. At number 2, Kathy Griffin was taken advantage of by her own brother. You might know her as that comedian who's always got a punchline ready, but her life wasn't all jokes and laughter. In her autobiography, My Life on the D-List, she bravely shared something really tough. So here's the deal. Kathy opened up about her brother, Kenny Griffin. When they were younger, he did some seriously messed up stuff to her. He was inappropriate in a really bad way. I'll let you guys connect the dots there, causing her a lot of pain and trauma. Could you imagine going through something like that with someone you're supposed to trust? And that's not the end of the story. Kenny's life took a dark turn as he ended up in prison for hurting his wife later on, and sadly passed away while he was there. It's a heavy load for Kathy to carry, especially being someone whose job is to bring joy to others. And at number 1, Robert Downey Jr.'s horrifying past. Robert Downey Sr., a renowned director of comedies throughout the 60s and 70s, played a significant role in shaping Robert Downey Jr.'s early life. As starting as early as 8, Robert Downey Jr. was exposed by his own father to the substance scene, if you know what I mean. Unfortunately, usage became a twisted form of bonding for the father and son. Despite this upbringing, RDJ's talent and charm attracted the attention of Sean Penn and Dennis Quaid, who attempted to help by sending him to rehab. However, RDJ escaped just 3 days later, contributing to his struggle. His escapades took a bizarre turn when he was stopped by the police while driving naked down Sunset Boulevard, cooked out of his mind, and tossing imaginary rats out of his car window. Astonishingly, he managed to avoid charges. However, he would eventually be arrested for possession of all kinds of substances and a firearm. Another peculiar incident involved him passing out in a random child's bedroom in his neighbor's house while under the influence. The family chose not to press trespassing charges. RDJ's troubled journey continued when he was arrested wearing a Wonder Woman costume in a Palm Springs hotel room, caught again with illicit substances. Despite a court-ordered rehab, he managed to escape through a bathroom window only to be apprehended hours later. RDJ endured violence and attacks from fellow inmates during his time in prison, waking up in pools of his own bodily fluids. He faced harsh conditions, scrubbing pizza pants for meagerly wages while questioning his sanity. Even amidst his struggles, RDJ's talent persisted. He once showed up 2 hours late to a meeting for a film role, barefoot and carrying a loaded pew-pew, yet he still landed the part. However, his substance use continued during his time on the popular series Ally McBeal, resulting in his arrest and subsequent firing from the show. Robert Downey Jr.'s journey has been a testament to the highs and lows of addiction, highlighting the challenges he faced and his remarkable resilience. Ultimately, his story serves as a reminder that it's never too late to overcome personal struggles and forge a path to redemption.
Coming in at number 10 is Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise was converted to Scientology by his first wife, Mimi Rogers, in 1986, becoming an outspoken advocate for the Church of Scientology in the 2000s. His involvement in the organization was leaked by the tabloid Star,
star in 1990, and he publicly admitted to following Scientology in a 1992 interview with Barbara Walters. In the 2000s, he sparked controversy with his criticisms of psychiatry and antidepressant drugs and his efforts to promote Scientology. He has been a close friend of the Church of Scientology leader David Miscavige since the 1980s, so that adds to why he's so passionate about it. In addition to promoting various programs that introduce people into Scientology, Tom has campaigned for Scientology to be afforded the status of a religion in Europe. Former Scientologist Paul Haggis claimed that Tom attempted to convert celebrities such as James Packer, Victoria and David Beckham, Jada Pinkett and Will Smith, and Steven Spielberg to Scientology. Now, since 2008, Tom has restricted interviews from asking him about Scientology, but it is known that Scientology was the reason why he got divorced from Kate Holmes and why he doesn't speak to his daughter. Number 9. John Travolta. John Travolta was raised Catholic but later converted to Scientology in 1975 at age 21. He was converted after being given the book Dianetics while filming The Devil's Reign in Durango, Mexico from former actress Joan Prather. Samantha Domingo, a former Scientologist, exposed some information about John being part of Scientology. In January 2009, his son Jet, then 16, died after suffering a seizure during a family holiday in the Bahamas. John then tried to command Jet's Scientology spirit, known as a Thetan, back into his body, according to Samantha. John did a bring back to life assist while Jet was in the ambulance. It's where you order the Thetan to come back into the body, saying, "I command you to get into the body now. This is meant to bring them back to life," she said. Jet unfortunately passed away, but years later, John had another child who he believes has Jet's spirit. Today, though, John has since been rumored to split from the church following the medical treatment and death of his wife, Kelly Preston. Kelly died of breast cancer in 2020 following a course of chemotherapy and radiation, treatments that L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of the church, was staunchly against. Number 8. Jada Pinkett Smith. Talking more generally about her faith, Jada Pinkett Smith says she's never been a fan of organized religion, but didn't feel negatively about Scientology like some others. While she says she was drawn to Scientology's general teachings, she explains, "I was very clear when I stepped into the Church of Scientology that becoming a member would not be possible, nor was it my goal." Still, the star says she embraced the church's basic study manual while homeschooling her children, Jaden and Willow Smith. Jada has defended her use of Scientology to homeschool her children and claimed that it was better than traditional learning. But again, Samantha Domingo has spoken out. Jada was definitely in Scientology. She was a recruiter and paid commission to bring in other celebrities, she claims. "When I moved to LA from Clearwater, I was just hanging out with celebs and their kids at the Celebrity Center. Most of them went to the Scientology school, Delphi, LA. Jada would always be around. There was a Sunday buffet where you can invite your friends. They brought in Daphne Wayans, her then husband Keenan, and their 5 kids. Daphne told me that Jada had introduced them to Scientology. Daphne was really excited telling me all of this, but that's what Jada did. She was charged with getting people into Scientology, and I'm sure she'd be getting commission for it." Number 7. Elizabeth Moss. Elizabeth Moss is notoriously tight-lipped when it comes to her involvement in the Church of Scientology, but she has defended the religion in an Instagram post when a fan compared Scientology to the oppressive situations in her latest show, The Handmaid's Tale. "That's actually not true at all about Scientology," Elizabeth responded. "Religious freedom and tolerance and understanding the truth and equal rights for every race, religion, and creed are extremely important to me. The most important thing to me, probably. And so Gilead and the THT hit me on a very personal level. Thanks for the interesting question." Now, some people are unsure if she's active or not in the church, but being inactive doesn't mean that you don't believe. It means that you don't go to the church. But Scientology works different than a Catholic church. For example, where you don't have to contribute money of time when you believe, but you're not actively going to church. Scientology is different where there are mandatory financial commitments to the church regardless of whether or not you're going. For her to be a member at all, inactive or not, she must pay an annual fee. So she is still contributing money to the church and is still in fact supporting it. You are never truly inactive in Scientology. Number 6. Danny Masterson. Danny Masterson Harrelson and his brother were raised in the church since childhood, but Danny got serious about its teaching in his mid-teens. In Scientology, there's no belief system where anyone's worshipped or whatnot. It's all sort of like college of the mind, he told Paper Magazine in 2015. And so I grew up not having to go and pray to anyone. I grew up just sort of like, oh, if you're thirsty, drink water. Now, the role of the church has been a talking point throughout the trial of Danny, who was sentenced to 30 years in jail on September 7th, 2023 for taking advantage of women. With the three complainants all church members at the time of the attacks in the early 2000s, prosecutors accused the church of discouraging victims from reporting Danny to the police, with Danny's ex-girlfriend Chrissy Carnell-Bixer blaming Scientology for the death of her two dogs. Now, the church denied the accusation in a statement following the trial, according to the Associated Press. Number 5. Marisol Nichols. The Riverdale star Marisol Nichols has been a member of the Church of Scientology since 1996 and has continued to support the controversial religion over the years because they helped her get sober after a drug addiction. Honestly, Scientology is what saved my freaking ass, she told Marie Claire in 2020. I'd probably be dead. Now, not too long ago, she reportedly reached Operating Thetan 8, the highest level of auditing or the process by which members confront and overcome their traumas. That means she should be able to leave her body at will, have total recall, control others with her mind, bring the recently dead back to life, be clairvoyant, is immune to disease, and she should have a sky-high IQ and total recall. Yep, they actually believe that. Number 4. Leah Remini. Leah Remini had been a member of Scientology since the age of 9. In July 2013, Leah left Scientology, owning to the policies that forbid members from questioning the management of church leader David Miscavige, which she believed was corrupt, and reported the abuse of members of its Sea Org religious order, its policy of disconnection, and its practice of branding those who have left the church of their own accord as suppressive persons, and the fair gaming tactics that Scientology has used for decades. In August 2013, it was disclosed that Leah had filed a missing persons report with the Los Angeles Police Department concerning Shelley Miscavige, the wife of Scientology leader David, who as of 2013 had not been seen in public since 2007. By the way, she still hasn't been seen today. After the report was filed, the LAPD looked into the matter, met and spoke with Shelley before closing the investigation and stated Leah's report was unfounded. Scientology said in a statement that the whole affair was simply harassment and a publicity stunt for Leah. In 2013, Leah sued the Church of Scientology and David Miscavige, accusing them of harassment, stalking, psychological torture, and operating an over 10-year campaign to ruin and destroy her life and livelihood. Number 3. Laura Prepon. Laura Prepon became a Scientologist in 1999. The Orange is the New Black and That 70s Show actress was an avid follower before welcoming her 2 children with her husband Ben Foster. After becoming a mother, Laura opened up her mind to other outlets and quit the church. In 2021, she told People, "I haven't practiced Scientology in close to 5 years, and it's no longer part of my life. As a brand new mother, I was reflecting so much on my own upbringing and the way I was mothered. I was forced to look at a lot of things in my life that I wasn't looking at before." The actress noted that she has always been open-minded to different religions ever since she was a child. Laura says she now meditates with her husband, Ben Foster. "We meditate daily and I'm really liking it because it's something that helps me to hear my own voice and it's something we can do together," she said. She credits motherhood for the recent changes in her life. Number 2. Giovani Risi. Actor Giovani Risi grew up as a Scientologist as his parents were dedicated members of the church. During a 2017 interview on the Jim and Sam show, the actor said, "It's a personal thing, it's something that works for me, and I think it's that simple." What is Scientology quoted him as saying, "Scientology has given me certainty of myself. I have the ability to comfortably communicate with anyone in any situation and be certain of my own goals." Giovani was also a part of the gala opening of Scientology's Psychiatry and Industry of Death Museum in December 2005. However, it appears Giovanni's daughter Lucia has since decided not to follow in her famous father's footsteps. "I'm so lucky because my family is supportive of me even though I'm not in the church, so I've grown away from it." And coming in at number 1 is Lisa Marie Presley. The Church of Scientology has chosen not to comment on allegations that Priscilla Presley forced her 11-year-old daughter Lisa Marie into the church, where she endured its purification rundown to end behind behavioral problems that arose after her father's death. The allegations come from a former high-ranking member of the church who has spoken out in an interview with the Daily Mail about the indoctrination imposed on Lisa Marie. Karen de la Carriere told Daily Mail that she was Presley's auditor, Scientology's term for counselor, and was therefore tasked with overseeing her introduction to the organization. At one point, Karen was married to Scientology president Herbert Gentich, but left the church in 2010 after being a member for 35 years. It's been reported that Lisa Marie distanced herself from the church, possibly around 2012, after spending 35 years as a member. She had hoped that Scientology would cure her of her drug abuse and other problems, according to what Karen told the Daily Mail. Karen said Priscilla, at the suggestion of John Travolta, joined Scientology when she was mourning the 1977 death of her ex-husband Elvis Presley. Priscilla also hoped that Scientology would control her daughter's behavioral problems, which included acting out and later experimenting with drugs.
At number 10 is Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg, yeah, the guy with the catchy beats and the cool vibes. Honestly, I personally want to arrest him myself after that whole quitting smoke marketing stint he just pulled off to advertise for that smokeless grill. He really had us there, but I mean, I should have known it was a sellout. But selling out is hardly the worst crime he's ever committed, so let's delve into his past, as it's not all glitz and glam. You see, back before all the fame, when he was just a regular high schooler, trouble wasn't a stranger to him. Substances, yeah, he got mixed up in that scene, especially with nose powder. He even did some jail time for it. But it gets even darker. In '93, Snoop and his bodyguard got wrapped up in something much worse, an unaliving case. They were accused of shooting a guy named Philip Woldemariam, sorry, I probably butchered that, who happened to be part of a rival gang. Snoop's bodyguard got off the hook by saying it was self-defense, but for Snoop, however, it took 3 long years before he was finally cleared of the charges in '96. Just really crazy. The rap star's got a past that's way more intense than just him spitting his bars. Shows how people can change their paths over time from a rocky start to stardom. At number 9 is Will Smith. Apparently Willie hasn't always been doing the slapping himself, as way back in '89, he actually called the shots and conspired an attack. He had an argument with a record promoter and things ended up getting way out of hand. So Smith told his bodyguard to basically rough this guy up, whose name was, by the way, William Hendricks. You guys might know him. The thing is, the beatdown was so bad that Hendricks nearly lost his vision in one of his eyes because his eye socket got fractured. And for as bad as that sounds, like Will basically orchestrated a hit, for crying out loud, Will did get punished, but not nearly as badly as one would hope. He was charged with some heavy stuff like aggravated assault, endangering someone, and being part of a criminal plan. But get this, later on, all those charges were dropped. Still, he did spend a night in jail where folks kept waking him up for autographs, which is hardly a punishment. Smith says that he didn't do the beating himself and was just around when it happened, and he still sticks to that story, even though it's left quite a mark on his life. And that was a tale of Will Smith in that crazy night. If you're enjoying this video so far, please support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Most Amazing, and ringing that notification bell. Coming in at number 8 is Jay-Z. Jay-Z, known for his music, has had a past that's not all smooth sailing. You see, back when he was just 12, things got super intense. He actually shot his older brother in the shoulder because his brother took his ring. That's some pretty heavy stuff for someone so, you know, youthful. It inspired some lyrics in a song where he talks about seeing the devil in his brother's eyes, saying he closed his eyes and just fired. Although he never got in trouble for that shooting, Jay-Z would open up later, saying that he was super scared that his life was going to be completely ruined after that. But wait, there's more. In 1999, things got serious yet again as Jay-Z got in a fight outside of a club and ended up impaling somebody in the stomach with a sharp weapon that I can't name. He owned up to it, pleaded guilty to a less serious charge, and got 3 years of probation, which is a pretty big deal considering how serious it could have been. At number 7 is Mel Gibson. Known for his roles in movies like Mad Max and his directing in Hacksaw Ridge, he's made the headlines for more than just his Hollywood achievements. He got caught up in some serious trouble, not once, but quite a few times. Back in '95, at a party with Winona Ryder, Gibson made a shocking reference to World War II's camps, saying some pretty awful stuff and making comments about her heritage. A decade later, he got arrested for driving under the influence and shouted anti-Semitic slurs during the arrest. But that's not all. Gibson has faced accusations of domestic violence from his former partner. Even though it was just an accusation, it led to a restraining order against him. At number 6 is Chris Brown. Chris Brown, the singer, might be famous for his music, but he's also famous for a lot of dark things. Remember the shocking incident with Rihanna? Yeah, back in 2009, things got really ugly between them. Chris Brown got into a physical confrontation with Rihanna and ended up wailing on her hard, like with a closed fist and everything. That's not all. He's been in trouble more than just once. See, he got into fights, like one in a big club, actually involving Drake. And not just that, his own bodyguard wasn't spared either. And then there was the hit and run case in 2013. You'd think getting into all that trouble would put him in jail for good, right? Or at least do something to his music career, but no. Apparently not. He did go to jail for a bit and had to do some community service, but he kept breaking the rules even while on probation. So they made him do even more community service and stay on probation longer. At number 5 is Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson, the famed boxer from New York. You might remember him from that infamous ear-biting incident during a match, but his past is actually way darker. You see, as a kid, Tyson was into theft, pickpocketing, and robbery. At 25, he faced charges for SA, criminal behavior, and confining Desiree Washington, a contestant at the Miss Black America pageant. The assault happened in her hotel room. He got a 10-year sentence, but got out after only 3. Sadly, old habits die hard, as in '97, Tyson bit another opponent's ear, and later he faced charges like assaults, connections to substances, and DUIs. It's tough seeing someone with so much talent get tangled up in all that scary stuff. As a reminder that fame doesn't shield one from a dark path. At number 4 is Courtney Love, who's probably most known for her connection to Kurt Cobain, as she was part of some seriously wild allegations. You see, her daughter, Frances, who was married to Isaiah Silva, gave her husband one of her dad's, Kurt Cobain's, super expensive guitars, and after the two split up, things got intense. There's a whole story about how Love, Britney Spears' ex-manager Sam Lufty, and Ross Butler from 13 Reasons Why, kind of a weird dream team here, supposedly planned a crazy attack. They allegedly wanted that guitar so bad that they tried to kidnap, break into, and hurt Isaiah Silva. It gets even weirder. Apparently, they hacked Silva's phone to make it look like he was in a bad place mentally. Silva claimed that Butler, Lufty, and the chauffeur broke into his place, roughed him up, and kept him there until he signed something for the guitar. Then Silva filed a restraining order against Lufty. These allegations are seriously intense, involving names and some pretty crazy stuff. At number 3 is Charlie Sheen, the guy from 2.5 Men. He's had a rough ride with the law, to say the least. He's been in a lot of trouble, like back and forth between substances and trying to get clean. In 1994, he got sued for hurting a college student who didn't want to do stuff with him. Then he hurt his ex-girlfriend by literally tossing her around. Things got worse when he ended up in the hospital for taking up too much nose powder. His issues with violence didn't stop there. In 2009, he had problems with his third wife, and it got real bad. People said he actually held a blade to her jugular. But the scariest thing is when he apparently pointed an empty firearm at his ex-fiancée and kept pulling the trigger. This is some pretty insane stuff. Charlie Sheen's life has been full of these dark moments, and it's all out there for everybody to see. At number 2 is Tupac Shakur, a much admired rapper. He had a tough history linked to crime. In '94, during a trial for an SA case, he got shot but survived. He ended up in jail right after his court appearance. After serving time, he joined Death Row Records, tied to the Bloods gang. One evening with Suge Knight, a known figure in the music scene, they attended a boxing match. A brawl broke out between Death Row Records' crew and their rivals, the Crips. Later, while driving with Knight, a car pulled up and Tupac was shot 4 times, and he passed away 6 days later in the hospital. Tupac's life was marred by violence and controversy. Despite his musical talent, his connections and crime led to a tragic end that shocked many fans. His story remains a stark reminder of the dangers associated with a life entangled in crime and street conflicts. At number 1 is Matthew Broderick. Known for his roles in movies like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, he had a troubling incident back in '87. While on vacation in Ireland with his then-girlfriend Jennifer Grey, they were driving on the wrong side of the road, and this little mistake led to a terrible crash with another car, causing the people in the other car to panic, that being Anna Gallagher and her mother. The actor faced serious charges for unaliving somebody by dangerous driving, which could have meant about 5 years behind bars. However, the outcome wasn't what many expected. He ended up with just a $175 fine and a lesser charge of careless driving. The family of the victims felt it was totally unfair, calling it a travesty of justice. Imagine losing your loved ones and the person responsible only has to pay $107, not even $200. It's a tough pill to swallow. This incident shows that even well-known people can be involved in tragic events, and the outcomes might not always seem fair to everyone affected.